Okay, we're about to go live. We are live on YouTube now.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee for June 27th, 2018, following our standard agenda. So first of all, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share this week? Okay, if there's no announcements, we'll move on to the items on the agenda. The first one is tagged under Node.js build, which is 1337. So this is a request for elevated permissions. That issue actually, I believe, was, well, there was an issue. The issue was open. There was a doodle trying to get the key people together. As Rich had suggested in a previous meeting, let's try and get the people that are most interested, including Rod, to discuss that. I think that issue may be closed because we didn't manage to get the right people, and John's going to be off for a week or so. But I don't think there's anything for us to discuss at this point. I think it's still up to that group to find a way to get together, move the discussion forward, and then come back to this, to the TSC. Anybody have any other input or feel otherwise?
I agree.
Okay. The next one on the agenda is Node.js Node, and it's buffer, runtime deprecate, buffer constructor everywhere by default. I did take a quick look at this earlier in the week, and I think it's basically, we're in a new release and somebody's suggesting we do that again, but I don't know if Chalker, do you want to jump into that one?
I would propose to delay the discussion until, for example, somewhere in August, just to observe how the system will look like in August. Because I think it's too early at this point for any decision to accept that or reject that.
Okay, so your recommendation is that we wait and see, and then, I guess leave it on the agenda until August, or maybe take it off the agenda and bring it back on in August is your recommendation?
I think that my recommendation would be to take it off until August.
Okay. Does anybody else have any feelings or suggestions on that front?
So I'm looking at this issue and I'm seeing a couple people coming in with -1s on it. And I have to say myself, based on the amount of different times we've tried to do this and pushback that we've had in the community and things that we've broken, I would like to see a really strong case that there are looming security concerns that are like really, really, really volatile for us to push forward on this. Because as far as, like, I'm not trying to speak down to it, but it seems at this point the remaining edge cases are mostly academic. And please, someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm not trying to be ill. I think, measuring the validity of security concerns is really important when we're offsetting against the ecosystem disruption. So I would, to feel comfortable with this, I would want to see what are we actually breaking in the ecosystem? Because I know gulp is also something that would be significantly affected by this, A, and then B, I would want to see, some specific use cases where this is really problematic.
I have some data on that, but I think that it's too early to discuss that at this point.
So Miles, do you have any concern in deferring the discussion till August in terms of whether it goes forward or not? It sounds like, your point is there's going to have to be a real convincing case.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, is it that you feel we should make that case or not now and take a decision, or is deferring to August?
I think that if we want to do this,
way.
I think if we want to do this, honestly, we should be landing it as soon as possible to give people a chance to test it with the nightly and make sure that this isn't going to be disruptive. If we wait until August, that still does give us, a couple months before the major release. But I do think that we shouldn't necessarily, what am I trying to say? I don't think that we should necessarily be pushing the discussion if it's fact-finding and things that are not related to timing. If there's things that we know we need to know in order to do this, I don't know that we need to delay that fact-finding.
I think that we should do it because the ecosystem is currently moving off the buffer constructor, and I don't think that is completed. I saw activity several days ago, and things like yarn or so. So I think that this situation now might be different from this situation that would be in 2 months or so.
Okay, I'm fine deferring to your judgment on this. You know the context and situation a bit better.
So it sounds like maybe, you know, what we should say is the likely answer is no if we had to decide today, but we're willing to wait and hear if things have changed in August. Is that a fair characterization?
I don't think there's any hard objections to moving the discussion to August. I think there's concern, you know, like considerations that are being raised, but I'm not hearing anything that says we shouldn't, or you know, we should land as soon as possible, but we're not going to land it today. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking now and go back to the minutes.
Okay, so I guess it's Nikita. Will you take the action to post something into that issue basing, you know, we discussed it and that was the agreement that, you know, there was consensus that we defer the decision until then.
I would prefer if someone else posted that comment today because of the time on my side. I can do that tomorrow, for example.
Okay, I'm happy to do that after the meeting concludes. So great. I'll take that on if you want.
I'll put you down as the person who's going to do it, Michael, if that's cool in the minute.
Yep, sounds good. Okay, so unless anybody else has something else on that issue, let's move on to the next ones. Okay, and as we discussed briefly before we started the meeting, we're going to leave the tracking issues to the end. So the next one is Node.js TSC proposal for adding all new core modules under a scope. This is 389. I think, you know, my read on that one, and I'll let everybody else comment and suggest otherwise if it's not the case, is that I see discussion is ongoing in that issue itself. I don't think there's any, you know, more concrete data or sort of thing to make a base a TSC decision on. I don't think we're at the point of a vote or anything like that in that issue. So I propose that, you know, we just leave it on the agenda and let the discussion continue in GitHub unless somebody else wants to add to that.
Yeah, I agree. I think with the pull request opened by Jordan, that at least helps push the conversation forward. We do have, you know, I do want to remind everyone that we have hard objections from 2 people. Well, one person who says that they will not change their mind. So if this is something that anybody, you know, anybody wants to land, it is going to come to a vote. So watch this space.
Rich, would you be able to share privately with me the person who has the strong objection so I don't have to be through the issue?
It's in the GitHub issue tracker. I even quoted them as saying, I will not change my mind. I mean, it's public. It's Mateo.
Yeah, but I think irrespective of that, there isn't enough of a clear consensus around from the rest of the group on the one way or the other that we can make a decision on that until more of what's being discussed in that issue proceeds. Okay, so I guess, does anybody disagree with leaving the discussion in GitHub and revisiting next time? If not, I think we'll move on to the next issues. I think as far as I'm concerned, the last two issues are now the tracking issues. Did I miss any? Don't think so. So if that's the case, let's move on to the tracking issue for updating the TC on board meetings. Miles?
Yeah, so we had a board meeting on Monday. Public agenda included welcoming Tracy as the board member representing the community committee. I gave an update to the board on what happened at the Collaborator Summit. And Tracy gave an update to the board on what's currently going on with the individual membership program and how things are running with the ComCom. The board meeting itself was like less than 15 or 20 minutes. It was fairly low on content and things to do this month. I'll follow up with an email soon with a few more notes, but there isn't too much to report on.
Okay. Any questions for Miles before we move on to the next issue? Okay, if not, then the next issue on the agenda is the update on strategic initiatives. So the first one there is, I guess we don't have James, so I'm going to skip the HTTP2 modules. Miles, anything you want to add on modules?
Modules working group is moving forward. Lots of noise, lots of discussion, lots of stuff going on. Currently discussions going on in defining the term transparent interop, potentially stopping to use that term and defining it into smaller, more discrete terms. There's also some conversations going on right now around hooks and kind of like different ways of doing pluggable loaders. There's a lot of proposals that are relying on pluggable loaders, and so we're trying to make sure that we understand the problem space. If anyone is particularly interested in breaking apart transparent interop or discussing loaders, let me know and I'll get to the issues where that conversation was happening.
Okay, the next one is an API. Really nothing new since last time. We're continuing to focus on the doc for Node on API and making incremental progress and preparing for the talks and workshop at Node Summit. The next one is OpenSSL evolution, but I don't think we have Rod. Workers, Anna, do you want to give us an update on workers?
I don't think there's anything in particular that is worth mentioning.
Okay. Joyee, do you want to give us an update on errors?
So there is an issue about the errors codes that were previously removed. And there was some discussion about whether we should keep them removed or restore them back and put them in a separate section, like mentioning that they used to be in core. So we had some disagreement there. I think it's tagged TC review. So I would appreciate if people can take a look. It's pull request 21491. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. That'd be good. Yeah, if getting everybody's input on that would be good. Core promise APIs, we don't have James. TSC governance. I don't know, Miles, if that's still one we, go ahead.
No major updates right now. I think there's still conversations happening. And I think that this becomes an interesting question about like where we draw the lines on governance. I think the conversations we were having at the Collaborator Summit, specifically around reevaluating what done means, is something that falls in line with this. Just haven't had time to push it forward just yet. But we are spinning up new members on the release and LTS teams. And as that moves forward in the LTS team, has suggestions on how we should change the actual management of our issue tracker. I think that will loop into larger governance changes within the project.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. What was the strategic? What should I label that in the minutes? That was what?
It's TSC governance.
Governance. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get the things that Miles was mentioning. I'm not sure it fitted into that original TSC governance kind of mindset, but we can always morph it into something different if that's what
Should we
makes
maybe
sense.
change this topic from TSC governance just to project governance?
Yes. If
I
you
thought
want
it
to,
was
like,
just governance. I thought it
Yeah,
was
I
just
thought it was
governance.
just governance myself, but maybe that's just, haven't looked at it in a while.
yeah, it's actually listed as TSC governance in the strategic initiative list. It actually links to an issue which is talking about, at the 2017 Collab Summit, we were going to set up a governance working group.
So Miles, go open a pull request to change that label.
Yeah.
Already doing it right now.
And if anything, it's like, do we keep that issue open? Like, if we're not going to push that as the strategic initiative, I would almost change the name. And then, if you think we've got a different strategic initiative that covers things, make an issue which describes what it should be.
Oh, did I just do that thing? Oh, no. Okay. I got to fix something. I did that thing where the GitHub UI, you immediately commit. Sorry, I'm going to mute my mic and fix stuff.
Okay, sure. Okay, new stream APIs. I know we don't have James. Do we have Jeremiah? Yep, Jeremiah, do you want to give us an update there?
So I've been playing around a little bit with all alternative API surfaces, but nothing really to update at this time. Hopefully something soon.
Okay, V8 currency. I don't think we have Michael Zasso this week. The only concern I will raise is I think we're still blocked on V8 for OS X due to the need for a new OS X level, or like 6.8. So we are looking at that, but I think that's something that I'll just point out that's one thing that still needs to be figured out before we could do the next bump to 6.8.
Michael, is there anything that I can do following up with the V8 team to help with that, or is it mostly just stuff in our own infrastructure right now?
I guess the one question that might make our lives easier for 6.8 would be, whatever changed that made us require a new level of the OS X development tools. Is that small enough that we could do without it, or like work around it, so that we weren't forced to make an immediate decision? That would help. I mean, otherwise, there's the issue of one, getting machines that will support the new one, which is, there's some issues around there I've shared before. The other one is just, if we're going to bump the build requirements after an existing release, that's a potential issue as well. I mean, there's been some discussion around that maybe we don't actually tell people what the minimum level you can build on is. But we'd have to make sure that we're comfortable in moving that up, because that would be the other decision to make as well. So yeah, I mean, I think it would just unlock it if it was like, well, there's 3 lines of code because they used one new feature and we could do something else. That would detach the issues, which would be a great help.
Okay, I'll follow up with them.
Okay, sounds good. Okay,
there's one more issue, which is we're currently blocked on 8.x backports because of some other tool. I think it's infra or compiler changes or operating system dependency changes in V8 that somehow we are not able to test the 8.x branch, but I think there's a fix in play for that one.
That's right. Like I think my understanding is we've already submitted a PR to master of the V8 tree, and actually, because all of our things check out basically clone V8, which is master, and then check out the branches, that actually having it land in master will fix the issue. So as soon as that lands, I think we'll be unblocked. But definitely worth keeping an eye on. Okay, async hooks is next on the list, Ali.
Nothing new to report on async hooks this week.
Okay. NPM integration, Miles?
NPM 6 is currently floated on the 8.x staging branch, ready to go out in the next 8 release once we have we're ready to start building an RC for that. We floated a patch recently to fix an issue with Node.js and file paths that had spaces in them. That's fixed upstream in JIP, and the NPM team is working on that. As far as I know right now, NPM is prepping their next release, and we're going to be working on downstreaming that soon after release. Been talking with the NPM team as well and trying to work out a pattern or consistency that we can have kind of a contract between our two teams about when they make a release, how long it will take for us to downstream it, as well as a commitment for how long it will take them to send us a pull request.
And I guess even if it would be downstreamed, right?
Indeed.
Yep. Okay. Next one is open web standards. Anything on that front, Miles?
I will not be attending TC39 next month due to a conflict, but we have Gus Kaplan going representing the team, and I'm sure there's probably some other people such as Jordan Harband who will also be there. There's a discussion in the WhatWig group. There's an issue about what working group and our approach to what working group. It seems that we've reached consensus within that issue that one of the core things that we really need to work out as a project are some of our core values. Especially, we need to evaluate our definition of small core. It seems that we have, phrases that we use that mean different things to different people. I'm in the midst of drafting an issue for the main repository for us to discuss this. But I think that one of the things that we really need to do, especially when it comes to open web standards, is decide, is part of small core implementing web standards, whether it be inside of core or inside of the Node.org. I think this is a similar question also to that namespacing issue. But I think that there's some core questions around our values and our definitions of certain terms that we throw around that we as a project need to reach consensus on before this can move forward too much. I also recently joined the WhatWig Web Audio Working Group, and I'm hoping to attend TPAC in October, which will help us begin to build some relationships over at the W3C.
I'm wondering, having followed a bunch of the conversations there, do we think we have a critical mass of people that it would make sense to set up a team who's a open web standards team, group of people who are interested in that, figuring out what we should be doing as a project and moving that forward?
The problem is everybody will have an opinion, which is good, I guess.
Well, it's more like, do we have enough people who want to get involved to work on it? There's one thing that's to say we should be doing something, but I'm just wondering, like, do we have enough? Does it look like we have enough people that if we say, hey, we're organizing a team and we're going to sort of like start a program of work, we'll have enough people to contribute that to make substantial progress?
I'm not at the moment convinced that that's necessary, and primarily because most of the time when you're going to these standards organizations or engaging, it's over a specific feature. So it seems more to me like, for example, console at the WhatWig. If we wanted to engage in console, it would make sense that there would be a team based around console. If we wanted to engage in promise at TC39, it makes sense that maybe we'd have a team specifically around promises. When it comes to actually being able to go and participate, there's no real rules for what working group. You may have to sign a license agreement as an individual contributor if your organization doesn't participate for TC39. You need to either be an invited expert or a delegate of an organization that's a member. And with the what working group, they have somewhat similar restrictions. What may make the most sense is just having some documentation about how to participate in all these organizations, and maybe like some sort of either mailing list or repo where we can have conversations around it. But I don't know that it makes sense in formalizing a group unless we're directly engaging as a foundation. And the way that most of these standards organizations are set up, we really, because of the way our foundation is set up as a collection of companies that they themselves are also members, it's hard for us to participate. Rich, you have your hand up?
Rich, yeah.
Yeah. So this conversation is probably going to have to happen again in GitHub anyway. So we might want to move it.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we can move on. Yeah. I won't. I have a few comments on that too, but you're right. Maybe we should just move it to GitHub in terms of a discussion. I had a simple question. You gave me an answer. We'll continue.
Yeah, I have an issue that I'm writing right now, and I'll loop that into it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. So that is the end of our strategic initiatives, and I believe that's the end of our issues. Does anybody else have any issues we want to discuss? Okay, let's check if there are any questions.
Oh,
Has
actually,
anybody already... Sorry, go ahead.
Miles, Miles, should we do the announcement about the?
Please, Rich, do the announcement.
No, well, no, you had mentioned that we forgot during announcements to announce that there's a collaborator nomination.
Yeah, so we have a new onboarded collaborator, Benjamin Coe. Welcome, Ben. And we have a collaborator, Shelly Vore, who has been approved to be a collaborator, and we're in the process of starting to onboard them. Welcome, Shelly.
Welcome.
Okay. Welcome. Okay, any other issues or announcements? Okay, if not, is anybody already watching or have the YouTube channel open just to see if there's any questions?
There are no hanging questions at the moment, no.
Okay, we'll give people maybe 1 minute to add any if they have any. Still no questions? Miles, that was a question to you.
Sorry, yeah, there's no questions.
Okay, so let's move on. So, I think that's the end of the meeting. Everybody, thank you for attending. And will the TSC members please stick around after we close off the meeting?
I'm turning down the